Today is Monday, October the 27th, 2014. This is the start of an interview with Mr. Gus Heise. Is that correct?
Right.
At the Clinton-Macomb Public Library, Clinton Township, Michigan, in partnership with RSVP of Macomb. Mr. Heise is 91.
Right.
91.
I think, yeah. Yeah, it's 90.
Date of birth is December the 5th, 1922.
Right.
Mr. Heise currently resides in Sterling Heights, Michigan. My name is Dave Brousseau and I'll be the interviewer, and Gary Miglia will be the videographer. Mr. Heise, would you state for the record the branch of service that you served?
I served in the 9th Infantry Division
In the U.S. Army
in the U.S. Army.
for World War II.
Right.
Were you born here in Detroit?
I was born in Detroit, yes.
Whereabouts?
On the east side.
Oh, yeah, east side.
That would be,
That Harper and,
no, that was near Mac and Ashland is the street that I was born on. I have the exact house number if you want that.
no. How about your parents? Were they born here?
No, they were born in Europe.
Your dad was,
But they emigrated to this country before World War I.
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Your dad was from Russia?
Yeah, well, he was German, but in an area that the Tsarina of Russia, she had put an ad in the German newspaper asking for German farmers to emigrate to Russia because they were noted for their expertise in farming. And so my dad's family emigrated to this part of Russia, and that's how it was.
What was behind the choice to immigrate to the U.S.?
That I'm not sure, but possibly because of
Work?
it could have been that he just, well, I'll tell you, my dad was in the Russian army, conscripted into the Russian army. He was, I don't know how long he was in it, but he came back and went to happened to go to his village where they had like a billboard where everything was posted, the news of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly after he was discharged from the Russian army, he went to this town and looked at this billboard and where all the information was, and found out that despite the fact that he was just discharged from the Russian army, they had another notice on the board that all men of a certain age had to report for duty, despite the fact that even if they were just discharged, they had to report. So my dad saw the handwriting on the wall and decided to emigrate to the United States. So that's what he did. He said goodbye to his family and
He was married at the time?
he was what?
Married?
No, he was.
Oh, he wasn't?
No, he wasn't married, no. And he just came over to this country.
Did he meet his wife over here then?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. How big was your family?
well, it was my dad and mother, and they had 6 children. I was one of them, of course.
3 boys, 3 girls?
3 girls and 3 boys, yeah.
And you were the middle boy?
Yeah.
Okay. Where did you go to school?
I went to school on the east side of Detroit. Do you want to know the name of the school?
If you could give it to me.
Well, the first school, I don't recall I think they called it Phillips School. It was just a small school. And from there, that didn't go up very high. I think it was only went up to the 4th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to the next school, which was Hosmer, Hosmer. And that went up to, I think, the 7th grade or 8th or 6th grade, I don't know, I don't recall. And then we moved from where I was born on Ashland and near Mac. And let's see, where was that now? Lost track now.
Well, we can come back to it if you think of it as we go
Yeah.
along,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Now, you had a rather close relationship with your younger brother?
Right, he was 18 months younger, year and a half.
Even when you were young, right?
Right. They were very close.
You got drafted when you were
I would
21?
Yeah.
Had you been working prior to being drafted?
Yeah.
Where did you work?
Oh, let's see, where was that? That was, I think. Yeah, I was working for a company, I can't recall the company, but it was over on the east side. I don't know whether you know where there was a big area where the streetcars would come and park.
That would be probably 8 Mile.
No, it was, all right, let's see, it was, what's the street? Do you know where Connors is?
Sure.
Well, it was, would be west of there, another street, was it Mount Elliott? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, by the city airport.
Yeah, but it wasn't that far, it was
Okay.
south of that.
Okay.
Let's see,
French Road?
no. It was before French Road.
Well, we're in the same ballpark, so that's
Yeah.
fine.
Let's see.
What kind of work were you doing?
At that time, I was a carbaloy form tool grinder for this company.
Was that something that the Army was interested in, your skill?
I don't think so. I don't think they knew or cared, for that matter,
Okay.
what I did for a living.
"1943, that's kind of surprising. That's right,
I think it was,
right in the middle of the war.
it was 1941, isn't it? I think.
Well, you joined up in 1943,
Okay,
according to this.
yeah.
All right,
Yeah, I got my draft notice at that
what'd you
time.
feel about that?
I knew it had to come,
Yeah.
you know.
Were you aware of what was going on in the war?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
That didn't bother you?
Well, it bothered me, but I had no choice.
Yeah. Was your mom still alive at that point?
No, she had died in
37?
1937.
How'd your dad think about it?
I think he just figured out it was inevitable, you know, that.
Your older brother, did he get
Yeah,
drafted?
he was drafted, he was caught in the first draft. And he ended up, if you know what the timeline was, or wanted the timeline would be, when they, that was the name of it, the Louisiana maneuvers, do you remember that?
Yes.
At that time, he was drafted, and he was part of that Louisiana maneuvers. They didn't even have guns at that time, so that they had used wooden replicas, like,
Really?
yeah. I mean, that's how new it was at the time. I mean,
Now, you get drafted. What'd your younger brother think about that?
well, at the time, he just graduated from high school. And we were pretty close, and he decided he wanted to go with me. So he volunteered.
So you went in at the same time?
Yeah. Well, I had gone a day before to the draft board, and everything, I think I had my, yeah, in fact, I know I had my physical. And when I came back and I was ready to leave the next day, and it was at that time that my younger brother, he graduated from high school at that time, and he decided he wanted to go with me. So I took him down to the draft board and asked if he joined, could he go with me? And they said, yeah, so.
But he had to have a physical.
But he had to have a physical, so I had to take him to a local doctor, and the doctor gave him a physical, and I took the results back to the draft board, and they okayed it then.
Where did you go for boot camp?
That was, how was it? It was down in Georgia.
Was that Fort Custer?
Well, that was our first stop.
Okay.
Was Custer, because it was right in Michigan there. And right away they almost separated us, and they actually did. They called him because his first name started with an A and mine started with a G. So he was called first, and he was, when he was called, he was put in this group that already they had called out all the names, see, and he was the last one for that group, you know. and then they were gonna start a new group, and, which they did, but I went up to the person that was calling out the names and explained to him that my brother was in that group and I wanted to be, I didn't want to be separated from him. So what they did, they called up, brought another guy in to replace my brother, and my brother came back into my group that they started. So this happened several times during, before we finally got settled into the.
Do you remember how long boot camp was?
It was about, I think it was around 16 weeks.
Yeah.
Something like that.
What activities were you involved in?
In
In
boot
boot.
camp, regular infantry training, a lot of marches, and we went on rifle range. I was second highest in the battalion on the range, and let's see, that was about it, I guess.
Was it hard to get used to the training?
Not really, I mean,
You'd have been 21,
my age,
Yeah.
yeah.
and your brother would have been 20?
He was 18 months younger.
Oh, 21, 20 then,
Yeah.
20, 19. Were there any events that you can recall while in boot that are worthy of talking about?
Not really,
Okay. When you shipped out of boot, where did they send you?
let's see, we went by train up to, I think it was, I think it was around Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure, but it was Pennsylvania. And there we picked up tent pegs. Each soldier would get so many of them, because each soldier was paired with another soldier, giving them the proper number of
pegs.
tent pegs for one tent. And
Pup tents?
yeah. Each soldier got a half of a tent, because it was, you were joined up with another soldier, and then you got to form one tent. So,
Are these the ones that had the bottom?
no, didn't have any bottom.
No?
No. Just two.
The pup tents, I recall, they were all one piece and there was a vinyl bottom to them, so you weren't laying on the
That
ground.
must have been much later. No, it was right on the ground.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, just,
Well-
you clipped it together.
Nonetheless, the pup tent was not very big.
No, very small, yeah.
What specifically did you do in Pennsylvania when you were there? More training?
No, we just went down. That's the funny part about it. They shipped us all the way to Pennsylvania, and then we picked up tent pegs and a piece of rope for the tent. And that's about it.
How long did you stay there?
Not very long.
Oh, okay.
And then they shipped us all the way back. understand why the Army would do stuff like that, but we learned from that experience that it happened a lot.
More of that would come.
They were always doing something strange.
Okay, then when were you shipped overseas?
Well, after, I think we had 16 weeks, I'm not sure, it might have been a little less of basic training. And then we were shipped out. And they also told us in basic training where we were going to be going. In fact, they, on more than one occasion, they let us know that we were going to be going to North Africa. And, which didn't...
I guess at that point, it didn't really make any difference. You didn't know any more about Africa than you did
Right.
the moon anyhow.
That's true, yeah. Although we knew that there was fighting there, you know, and well, we were aware that it wasn't going to be a picnic, you know, and it wasn't, of course. But when we got there to North Africa, the fighting had already was completed. So then we went from North Africa to Sicily, and the fighting, there was still fighting in Sicily. But by the time we joined up with our division, they in North Africa, they told us what division we were going to be in, and we were already assigned to the 9th Infantry Division in North Africa. We just had to go into Sicily and actually join up with them.
How far is that?
Not very far.
Okay.
There was a stretch of water there. If you look at the map, you can see that there's not much water between Sicily and North Africa there at that point.
What was it like in North Africa?
Well, we weren't there very long. I mean, we didn't do any fighting in North Africa. The fighting was already completed, you know, so. And I wasn't...
Wasn't Patton's group in North Africa?
Not at that time. That came much later. I mean, when we became part of his division, we were first under in what they call the First Army, and that was under General Hodges' First Army. And it wasn't until later on in France that we were put under Patton's command.
How did you tell me about that?
Pardon?
How did you tell me about that? Did you join up in Patton's group, or did Patton join up with your group?
I think he joined up with, he was put in charge of our group.
I mentioned to you earlier about joining up with Patton's group, and you said, we didn't join him, he joined us.
Right. We were put under his command.
Right.
Let's see, what, yeah, we were under, what do they, I think it was the First Army, and then we ended up with the, I think, was it, I forget the number, but then then Patton joined us, or took us over here, took over the 9th Infantry Division. we became part of his army.
What was it like under Patton?
Well, we didn't notice anything different except that
He was quite a
they
character.
said we were gonna join Blood and Guts Patton. And they said, the guys just said, his guts and our blood. I mean, he was kind of a show-off. Patton was,
Big ego.
yeah. Yeah, there's a famous picture, I don't know, you might have seen it, where he and Montgomery. And Montgomery's looking at Patton, and you could see that he's, well, actually, Patton was standing there, and I think he had 2 pistols he had in his holsters on the side, and Montgomery was looking at him like, who's this character, you know? And he was, I mean, you could tell that he looked at him and disdainfully.
Yeah.
But,
Actually, they weren't pearl handled. They were ivory.
yeah,
And Patton used to make that pretty clear, because ivory was more expensive.
right, yeah. Yeah, he was a big show-off.
Do you remember that when he slapped that kid? I think you told me about that.
Yeah, I recall the time.
And then he had to apologize to him.
Yeah.
That's part of the guts.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he was reprimanded by Eisenhower
Yeah,
at the time.
he almost lost his command
Yeah.
a number of times.
Yeah.
You told me about a situation where condoms were issued. What story
Well,
was that?
we were issued condoms quite early, but they were used, they were meant to be used over the end of the rifle to keep water from going in there.
And keep the barrel clean.
Well, yeah, and they figured that in a case we were near water and we had to go in, we wanted to keep the salt water out of the gun, you know. And that's why they issued those condoms. But we never had an occasion where we, although we did move across water at times, it wasn't to the point where we got our rifles wet, you know, so we didn't have to use the condoms, although we had them. And before we left Sicily, we were moved down to a place, we had to go walk down to this place, it was in Sicily, a place called Termini Amers. I don't know how it was spelled, but that's how it was pronounced. And we were all lined up in formation. It's a hot, sunny day, and we were waiting for Patton to come from North Africa to,
Is that where you found another use for the condoms?
well, while we were, well, we made a use for them. While we were standing in formation in the hot sun, somebody, and there was a wind blowing right across in front of us, and some soldiers apparently started it. We took out these condoms, we're blowing them up, and they were blowing across in front of our formation. And I mean, they were just
Nothing better to do and,
something to do while we were waiting there, you know. And, it's funny to see all of these condoms blowing.
at any time during your march with Patton, did you encounter the enemy?
Well, we weren't put under Patton's, we weren't put under his command right away. We were under Hodges' First Army.
Is that Patch? Was that his first name?
I don't remember.
You told me about
He
one of
was,
those guys that called him Patch.
I'm not sure what he was called, or what his
Okay.
first name. All we knew was that his name was Hodges, you know. And he was in charge of the First Army. And it wasn't until later in France that we were put under Patton's command and became part of the Third Army. I think that was the way it went, yeah.
You did have an opportunity, however, to talk to some of the prisoners, briefly,
Yeah, in North Africa,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, we had a brief encounter with them, and there was a lot of German prisoners, and they were on one train, or actually the train was there that they came on, but they weren't in the train, they were,
In the boxcars?
no, they were just standing around
Oh.
in the area where and our train was on another track, and we got I don't know why we were stopped there, I don't know, but a lot of the soldiers got off the train and we were mingling with the German prisoners there, and
They must have spoke English?
I don't know whether, I spoke a little.
Actually, you spoke German.
Yeah, I could speak a little German, because I'm of German descent, see. But when my brother and I were small, my parents said that we used to, when we were outside, we spoke German and would argue in German to one another, but I never recalled that occasion, you know.
Mhm.
But we did, a certain amount of German came back that we could, not a heck of a lot, but some of it, you know, came back, and we were able to converse, you know, with
Tell me about the situation that came up when the American forces were forcing the Germans to give up all their knives?
Yeah, that was in in the Cherbourg Peninsula in France. That was one of our first objectives. We for the 9th Division was to cut off the Cherbourg Peninsula, and we had gotten a lot of prisoners, and it was we were in one of the many hedge-rowed fields there, and we were, I was alone with a group of them, and I had orders to take all their pocket knives. In German it's Taschenmesser. And that's when I told them that they had to give up all their Taschenmesser. And of course they didn't understand why they had to give up a little knives like that, that were only maybe that long, and a few blades in them, but that was our orders, to take them off. So I had my helmet there, and had them drop their knives in there. Most of them complied with my asking them to put them in there. But there were some officers, German officers, that kind of rebelled, particularly one of them. I don't know how high he was, but he must have been fairly high. And when I asked him for it, he took the knife, and he threw it right on the ground. I mean, he didn't want to give it up, but so that was the way he just showed his rebellion, you might say, at giving it up.
When did the Battle of the Bulge occur then?
Oh, that was, we had covered quite a bit of territory, and it was up until the Battle of the Bulge was in the winter time. And yeah, we were I think we were in what they call the southern pincers of the Battle of the Bulge.
You told me a story about your back support, where the cannons were shooting ahead of you to try to make a way for you to continue through the battle.
They were always behind us and would lobbing shells in front, yeah.
But sometimes they fell short.
On the one occasion where we, where the heck were we there? Anyhow, we were, it was around the town of Schmidt, Germany. I don't know where that was. We never had a map or anything where we could actually see where we were, you know. But that's where it was, and at that particular time, there was another outfit, another division, that American division, that was, we had to, we went up and we were told that we were gonna cross in front of them, go through their lines, and proceed on to this town of Schmidt, I think it was called. And the town was burning, and it was in the evening. It was already dark. And we went through the town, but they told us that we were gonna, before we would start going through the town, that we, our heavy artillery in the back, well, heavy artillery, light artillery, heavy mortars, the 81 millimeter mortars, the 60 mortars, 60 millimeter mortars, and all of, and then there was we had our long guns were the 240 millimeter cannon in the rear. They had a range of, I think, 7 miles, something like that.
They were quite a bit in the rear.
Yeah, but all of that array of artillery and mortars, all the different sizes, were all gonna be fired at a certain time and precede us.
Soften up the resistance.
Yeah, and but as we got closer to this town, we had gone through this other division, and we were going through, and this was in the evening, and the town actually was burning, and as we moved forward, then, and all of this artillery and stuff that was supposed to precede us landed on us. I mean, there was some fall up someplace. How many casualties we had, I don't recall. I mean, it did serve to alert the enemy that we were coming. And then they opened up on us. So that we got off the road and just went over to the one side, and it sort of disorganized us, and as it got later in the early morning hours there, our company, what was left of it, or, I mean, not that there were casualties, but we were sort of scattered around, you know. We had made our way to this farmhouse, and this farmhouse was right at the edge of a valley, extended some distance in front of us. Like a big ditch it was, you know, but it was more than that. It was quite a valley, like, you know. And we were this house, at this house, farmhouse. And that's where we stayed until, and there was, I know there was one of our tanks pulled up in one corner of the house and started firing across this valley at the Germans on the other side. And of course, our tank, any time that they got involved, they would draw fire from the enemy, which was a natural occurrence, and then we would get draw fire from them. You know, they would drop. They had these. We would get mortar fire from them, and I don't know what they. We didn't get any. It didn't seem to get any artillery fire. It seemed to be just heavy mortar fire that would come over, you know, like that, you know.
When did the air support come in?
We didn't get any air support at that time. That was later when we were at when we were stymied at St. Lo. That was one of the bigger cities in France there. And
What was that experience like? Didn't you have trouble with the air support hitting friendly fire?
Well, what happened was that we were held up at St. Lo, some distance in front of it. And I know that we were there for, I think it seemed like a couple of weeks, and it was rainy weather, miserable weather. We'd dig a foxhole and it just accumulated, water would accumulate in the bottom, you know, and we would be standing in the water. And it was really miserable. In fact, we didn't, I remember that we didn't eat out of our sea rations. We had our sea rations were all gone, and they were bringing up sandwiches to us, which was all right, you know. I mean, they kept us in food, you know. But it was rainy and miserable weather. And finally, at one point, they pulled us back. The weather cleared, but we were still not able to move forward at St. Lo. At one point, they pulled us back, I don't know, a couple thousand yards from the front. And that's when they assembled an array of varied airplanes. They said that it was around 2,500 airplanes, and they flew over us, but they had pulled us back because they didn't know, they realized that some of the bombs would fall on us if they didn't pull us back, I guess. So they I think it was 2,500 planes were involved in that, and they flew over, and they really hammered them over there. And it was a decisive move on their part, and it worked, you know, because the Germans had a big heavy tank. It was 60 tons. And some of those tanks, well, maybe all of them, I don't know, that were in that area, I mean, they just flipped those tanks over. They were upside down. I mean, you can imagine what kind of force had to put them upside down in that position. I mean, it was, but it was after that bombing, and we were able to move forward again. But I mean, the bombing was to such an extent that the German soldiers that we encountered, they were all, I mean, the ones that were still alive, they were wandering around, they were shell-shocked and stuff, you know. I mean, they weren't able to do anything, you know, so you can imagine, must have been. I remember one of our trucks that had sea rations on it, and it was supposed to be back, although they pulled us away from the front line, but because of this bombing that was going to take place. But apparently they didn't pull us back far enough, and my group wasn't that close, but one of our trucks, one of our big trucks that had sea rations on it, was hit, and they said the sea rations were all over the place. It hadn't been, I mean, either they dropped a bomb too close, you know, or I don't know. But that's what happened.
Would you say that the conclusion of the Battle of the Bulge was pretty much a key in the change in the war?
Yeah, it was near the end. The Bulge was, what happened was that the way I understood it, the Germans had amassed enough men and material, and they made we had a fuel dump in our line there someplace. They hadn't figured out that just how far that was, and they figured that they were short of fuel for their tanks and whatever, and so they made a concerted effort to reach that dump, which they figured was close enough for them to make this one dash and get to that fuel dump so that they could make use of it. But they came up short because they didn't have enough fuel to get their vehicles, their tanks up there, you know, so that failed.
When did you hear about Hitler?
What did I what?
Hear about Hitler?
Oh, that was later on.
Yeah.
That we heard about him.
That kind of put a cap on it all.
Yeah, yeah.
How far into Germany did you get?
Oh, we went quite a ways into Germany, but the exact place, I don't recall the name of it. But after we reached that point, it was pretty much over, the fighting, you know.
You haven't talked about your brother. When did you lose your brother? That was in Germany, wasn't it?
He had been wounded early on in France, and this was we came under fire. This was in the Cherbourg Peninsula, and we had been going up on. We were riding these tanks. We'd jump on the tanks, and instead of walking, we'd ride, you know. But in the Cherbourg Peninsula, at this one point, they opened up on us with artillery, and we jumped off the tanks and hit the ditches. And knowing from what direction the shells were coming, we went to the ditch on our right side, not the left side, but on the. And my brother, he was, I don't know, he was smart, but
stubborn.
Sometimes he got a little bit too curious, you know, and he raised up himself when artillery was landing on the other side of the road, and instead of laying down, some of the shrapnel got him, you know, and he had gotten about 8 pieces in him. Some in his legs, and one piece went through his upper lip, and he said that it felt like somebody hit him in the mouth with a baseball bat. Hit his 2 front teeth up here. And this I found out sometime after he went back to England, where they sent the wounded. And I didn't see him for quite some time. In fact, the whole summer I didn't see him. And then he came back up when it was winter time. And and then he was with me from that time on until we this other battle, when we were at this big valley. He had already joined me, and we were in this farmhouse, and I had told him, well, this farmhouse had a small building attached to one side of it, or one end of it, and that was for small animals. There was a like a stable. But and most of what was left of our company, including the captain of our company, they were in the main part of the house, and there was a basement, because we were, later on I saw that I had told my brother, I says, let's go in the main house. That's where most of our company is, you know. But he was stubborn, and he didn't want to move. And he could be that way, you know. And usually he would take advice from me. But this particular time he didn't. And so, and he was leaning up against this wall of this building we were in. And so he was sitting down, and he was we were say from here, sitting over here, and the corner of the house, the building was over there. And he was on my left side, and they were shelling the place, dropping mortars on it. And I tried to get my brother to get up and move with me to the main part of the house where a lot of our company were. But he was comfortable leaning against the wall there, and that was, I just couldn't convince him, you know. So I sat down next to him on his right side, and we were like over here, and the corner of the building was like that there. And one shell landed right on the corner outside and blew that quite a hole, took out the whole corner of the building there. And I felt the weight on my shoulder, the left shoulder, and it was my brother. And I turned like this, and he fell on my arms, and he must have been gone right there then. One piece of shrapnel took off his bottom of his left ear, and shrapnel goes up like that. So when I mentioned it to a doctor in the rear there, he said it probably hit the base of his brain and killed him instantly. So, and that's when I lost him. So, had he listened to me, we'd have been all right, you know.
Did you have any thoughts after that, what you thought about it?
Oh, I had a lot of thoughts. I mean, but I couldn't, I just couldn't figure out why. I knew that he was stubborn, you know. He had missed a good part of the war from being wounded in the Sherbrooke Peninsula there. And when he did join me, it was in the winter time. The summer had gone by, and it was winter time, and he had joined me up in the front, and it was in the winter, so he had missed quite a bit of the war already then. So,
I know I have a brother and his,
There was only 18 months between us, so we were pretty close.
yeah. There's some kind of a bond that usually forms,
Yeah.
and most of the time the older one seems to be the one that gives the direction, and the younger one tends to follow. And
Well, he was wounded in the Cherbourg Peninsula there, and that was, of course, in the summertime when we were up there, and it wasn't until the winter time that he rejoined me up in the front. And
when the war was over, what kind of celebrations did your group go through? Must have been a terrible relief.
oh yeah, but I mean, it wasn't. We didn't go jumping all around, and I mean, we were just, everybody was subdued, I think, but they were happy that the war was over, you know, as I was. But I didn't jump up and down.
Some of the troops that were in the European theater
Yeah.
were sent to the Pacific theater for the duration of that war. Did that ever come up?
That could have happened, but they probably were soldiers that were just newly assigned to our group, you know, because you accumulated time,
Points?
you know, and eventually I ended up in the 9th Division quartermaster toward the end of the war, and which was better, you know. The quartermaster they supplied the rest of the division with the food and ammunition, whatever they needed, you know.
What happened to your older brother?
My older brother was in the Pacific. He had gone in at the time of the Louisiana maneuvers. That was real early. And he was, at that time, they still had, to go back, in the First World War, the divisions were what they called square divisions. They had 4 regiments, 5,000 soldiers in every regiment. And my older brother, was assigned to the 45th Division. That was one of the square divisions. So they took his regiment, which was the 158th 8th Division, or regiment, and took that away from the 45th, and the 3 remaining regiments went to Europe and with us, and his regiment was a 158th regiment, I think, and they went to the Philippines and that way, and he ended up in the Pacific. I don't know his exact route, but I know he was in New Guinea at one time. But he came back, he was unscathed, you might say. So,
When you got out of the army, you came back home.
yeah.
Imagine your father was happy to see you back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I ended up in, when I came back, I ended up in, what was the name of it? It was in Pennsylvania, and, what they call that again? Forgot the name of that camp, but it was a big camp. And, in fact, they didn't even have, when we arrived there, it was in the evening. I mean, I and maybe a dozen or so other soldiers that were able to, we were going to be discharged, and I mean, we had enough time already, and they had sent us over back already. And we ended up at, what was the name of that? Trying to think of the name of that camp. No, I can't think of it right now. I know it, but it just doesn't come to me right now. And it was quite a large camp, but when we arrived there, there was no accommodations for us. There was no barracks open that they could put us in. Although we were a small group. So what happened, they had a woman's area where a lot of women soldiers, you know. And so they had some openings, some buildings that were open that they could put us in. And so we were right in the middle of this where these women were billeted. They were all soldiers. What do they call them? The
Wax.
Wax, yeah.
Was it Camp Reynolds?
Pardon?
Was it Camp Reynolds?
Camp Reynolds?
Yeah.
I don't really know what the name of the camp was. Oh, wait a minute. It was Indian Town Gap, I think they called it. That's where the camp was.
How long did you stay there?
Oh, probably, it might have been about a week and a half. And
When you got home, what did you do for work?
well, I had, I don't know what, I worked for this one company, and I had some seniority, but not much. I went back to that company, I can't recall the name of it. I was a tool grinder there. And shortly after I got back, they laid off everybody that had less than 10 years seniority.
Wow.
So I didn't, didn't get much work there after the war. another job. I don't know. Just what I did at that time. I know I worked as a carpenter. My dad was a carpenter by trade. And so I was pretty handy with working with wood. And I had, let's see, did I work? Yeah, so I did work as they didn't consider me as a journeyman carpenter. So I worked as an apprentice carpenter for a while. That was one job that I had. And another job I had, I worked for a short time at a Ford dealership. In the parts department till they went on strike. They and the whole, this was on the Gratiot Avenue here, you might know where that is. And all the dealers, car dealers on that area, the people went out, the union struck, and all the mechanics and the parts, the people working in the parts department, they had to go on strike, you know. So after just a few days after I joined, they went on strike, so I was out of work again. I don't remember now, just...
Did you think about going to school on the GI Bill?
No, I wasn't really familiar with that at the time. If it was there at the time, I was discharged, but...
How did you meet your wife?
Oh, I met... Oh, was working at... I worked for Hudson Motor on Gratiot, or on Jefferson and Connors. And before that I was working at Fruoff Trailer as a draftsman. And from there I went to Hudson Motor, and that's where I got my first training in the automotive area of drafting. And I didn't work too long there at Hudson Motor, and then I think they went on strike or whatever, but there was some reason that they folded, and so I went from there to Chrysler, but they weren't Chryslers. The company they were at, or the building they were at, was on Outer Drive near Mound Road. And it wasn't Chrysler's, but it was something else. But they did body work, drafting for Ford, Chrysler, and Packard. Shortly after I started there, Chrysler bought the whole business out, and it just became Chrysler's. And they only did just Chrysler work. So I worked there maybe, it was less than a year, I think. And I wasn't getting anywhere, so I decided, well, time for me to move. And it was at that time that the tech center opened. In 1955, I think it was when they opened up. And they were hiring there, so I went down there and I got a job there in my field, drafting. And I picked up another classification, a higher classification. And then I stayed there for the next 30 years. So I retired from there, from
GM,
General Motors, Fisher Body.
Fisher Body.
Yeah.
How big was your family?
How big was what?
Your family?
My home?
Your family?
Oh, my
Your
family.
children?
My family? Did you say?
Yeah.
Well, I met my wife at General Motors at the tech center there. And when did we get married? I think we got married in 55, yeah. And we had 5 children. We had 3 girls and 2 boys. And I had lived we had settled down in Shelby Township. And had a nice home there, ranch type, nice area. So,
Are the kids local?
pardon?
Are your children local here?
They're scattered now. They went to school in Shelby Township, Eisenhower High School and Shelby Junior High and let's see, I have one boy, Colin. This is Colin, and he is now someplace in the Pacific on an island. I haven't seen him for a couple of years now. He was my second oldest. This is my oldest boy here. He was born in 1960, and he came a year later. Colin.
What's Colin doing on the island?
I don't know. He came back one time. This was over a year ago, I think, since he came back, and he had a sheriff's badge on his belt, and he was considered, according to him,
like a boss over there on this island where he was. The island was called, it's spelled Y-A-P, Yap. Where it's someplace out in the Pacific. I haven't seen a map where I could pinpoint it, you know. I'd like to get a map and find out where it is. But that's where he is. And this is my older son here. He's quite smart. He was into chemistry, and he graduated from Western Michigan High and University. And he worked for several big companies, pharmaceutical companies, and he's up. I don't know what the name of his company is now, but it's a big company that he's working for now. It's up. Where the heck is that? North of here, quite a distance. Not all the way up, but. Can't think.
Traverse City?
Not that far, no. I have a daughter that lives up there, and my oldest daughter lives up near Traverse City.
You don't get to see them much then, eh? Very much?
Pardon?
You don't get to see them very often?
Not too often, no. And since I haven't driven for a year or so, I can't go up there anymore to
Yeah.
see them.
You got grandchildren?
Oh, yeah. And I have a daughter that lives in, where is this? It's on this side of Hall Road, or I don't know I can't think of the name of the subdivision now, but it's not too far from here, actually. And she has several children, and in fact, see, she has two boys that they're married and they have their own family, and she has a daughter, I know. They come over to see me occasionally.
How do you like it here?
It's pretty good. I really don't have any complaints. It's a different way of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got used to it, you know. I mean, the people here are nice. I haven't met any that I dislike. I mean, and I feel that I'm part of the gang over here, you know. I think they like me, so.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah, refresh my memory, were your parents still alive when you went into the Army?
Just my dad.
Your dad?
Just my dad.
My mother died in
37?
1937, yeah.
So when your brother died, did you write to your dad and tell him?
I did write a letter to him, but the Army notified the next of kin
So he,
before, so
yeah,
he got the news from the Army
right.
before.
But then he got the letter from you where you
Yeah,
told him
I
probably
assume he
more
did.
did.
I don't. We never, after I came back, he never mentioned, talked about the letter, although I knew he had gotten it. you
Yeah.
know.
It probably was some comfort to him that you were there.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. That's it, in the middle,
This one right here?
in the middle.
Yeah. Good looking boy.
Yeah. That was taken at Camp Wheeler, Georgia, where we took our basic training. In Macon, Georgia was the town where we had taken those pictures. The picture on the left there is my older brother.
This one?
Yeah.
The one that was in the Pacific.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Joe.
Joe, and the younger brother's name?
Arnold.
Arnold.
Yeah.
And then, is that your mom and dad?
Yeah, that's my dad up above there, and then my mother is below there. But that was before, that picture was taken before my dad and my mother met. That was some years before that. So those pictures there, and that small thing is our grandchildren, some grandchildren of mine.
What happened to your older brother after he got out?
Well, he moved to California, Long Beach, but he had he was engaged to a girl here in the Detroit area, and she had been a nun in the monastery for 16 years, I guess, something like that. And I went with part of that family, a younger girl, for a while, and then Mary was the one that my older brother dated and eventually married, and she was a nun in a convent at one time, and she tired of that life and wanted the married life, you know, so. My older brother, he passed away some years ago. I saw him a couple of times through the years. He came down, or came back up to and visited me at my home in Shelby Township. But he's gone now too. I have an older sister that lives in the Detroit area yet.
Do you see her?
I was seeing her as
was able to drive.
Mhm.
But after I stopped driving, and I didn't, well, I stopped driving because at home there in Shelby Township, I had passed out a couple times in the house, and I figured wouldn't be wise for me to drive and having something like that happen while I'm driving.
Yeah.
So I figured, well, I better give it up, you know, so that's what I did.
How long have you been here?
Oh, geez, I think it's better part of a year, I think now. Might be a little more, but I don't know. I'll have to check with one of my daughters that she lives in Sterling Heights. And she visits me here.
Okay.
Gus, I
Yeah.
appreciate it very much
Uh-huh.
that you give us and share with us your experiences. It's been a real pleasure listening to your stories.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gus. It was a real good interview.
And thank you for the book. It gave me some light. The book is kind of another one of these history books on your group.
Yeah. Did you read the whole book?
Well, there were certain sections I concentrated on that appeared to be of interest. A little bit hard to get through the whole book. It's
Yeah.
quite concentrated. But I appreciate, I know it was hard for you to let me have it because you place an awful lot of value in that book.
Oh, yeah,
So thank you for doing that.
Well, I'm glad I got it back again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.